So, so hey guys, another Saturday and another guest with me, and he doesn't need any introduction again, and but still, just for the sake of introducing him, I will just talk a little bit about him. Saurabh Nigam has more than 15 years of experience, setting up innovative people practices inside a startup, and he has worked across companies. He's right now vice president human capital at Omidyar Network India. Before that, he has been associated with Snapdeal, Bore Inc., Aditya Birla Group. He is an alumnus of XLRI Jamshedpur, and he comes up with like tons of experience, not only with the HR thing, but also with how to manage your personal life, emotions. How can you do good in life, not only from the professional front but also from the personal front. I welcome you, sir, and thank you for taking our time today.
Thank you, Rishi. Absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
So we'll start with the first thing, which goes quite anti to the profession that you're associated with. So what do you like least about the world of human resources?
Very difficult to say that, Rishi. I mean, I've been an HR professional for almost a decade and a half now, and what I really like about the fact is that no 2 days are the same, right? Dealing with this profession when you're in this profession, and that's what I really like. So yeah, if you were to really push me to answer, I mean, there are days when when you're doing extremely operational stroke transactional stuff in HR. And I do understand that they're important, but it's not very interesting, right? So whether it is record keeping, compliances, stuff like that, I won't say it's super interesting, but extremely important for sure.
Yeah, that's something which is a part of every profession.
Every
Sort of,
profession.
you will have some repetitive task, and
Absolutely.
then there will be part of some
Absolutely.
task which will be.
Absolutely agree with you. And you take the profession as a whole. I mean, the profession which you've chosen, right? Because as you rightly said, there will be things which you will be really excited about in any profession. There will be things which will come across as a drag at times, but the whole makes the profession you choose, right?
Right. Now, the next question is, what is an ideal workplace for you?
Uh, So two aspects to it, right? An ideal workplace consists of the aspect number one would be the kind of work you do, right? And something which excites you, something which makes you get out of your bed every single day and look forward to. In COVID times, get onto your laptop. In non-COVID times, get to office. Rather than dragging yourself to work, right? So any workplace which is giving you the opportunity to work on something which excites you, and different people have different definitions of excitement, so I'm not going to go there. So that's one part of it. Second is really the people, right? I mean, I think opportunity to work with people with whom you learn, with whom you can respect, whom you can trust, I think is what makes an ideal workplace for me.
Respect, trust, and with whom you can work.
Yeah.
These
Learn,
three things.
not work, learn.
Learn.
Yeah.
And sort of, once you told this thing, I actually, it actually reminded me of one of the lines which my first boss just after MBA told me, is that, Rishikesh, if you're not willing to, wake up in the morning to come to office,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and if it actually happens for, continuous 2 months, then try looking out for a switch.
Yeah. I completely agree with that. I mean, when you get out of the bed, there has to be a spring in your stride. There has to be that excitement to get back to work, get back to your team, get back to the organization you're part of, and start contributing. Your bit. I think if that doesn't happen, then there's something fundamentally wrong, and that's where you need to ask the question: are you playing the right game? Are you in the right game? Right? That's really how I put it. So yeah, I completely agree with that point, and I firmly believe in that. And it goes beyond profession as well, by the way, right? So anything which you're doing, right? In fact, I firmly believe, Rishi, that it's a given that we all have finite breath which we are blessed with in this world. When we came in. Now, what you do with those many breaths, right? And none of us know how many breaths we have, by the way, right? So, what do you do with the breaths which you have been blessed with is up to you, right? So, doing something meaningful with the time you have on this planet is your call, right? And that meaningful, I think the fundamental way of defining what is meaningful is when you get excited about doing something, right? So some people may get excited by playing cricket. Some people may be excited by teaching, training. Some people may be excited by like what you're doing, right? And talking and doing these shows and so on and so forth. But figuring that out is very important rather than just meandering along because you're losing on precious time. That's how I put it.
Absolutely, that is so relatable. And a lot of people out there, they're quite intelligent, but they're quite confused in their lives. And it's
Yeah,
very important for them to figure out why do they
yeah,
exist.
yeah, absolutely agree with you.
Now, Saurabh, the third question is one difficult experience you had with an employer, manager, or coworker, and how did you handle it?
So in my profession, honestly speaking, Rishi, every time I have been tasked to take up a restructuring exercise in an organization, and I've done that quite a few times now. That's a tough one, right? Honestly, to me, that's right by far the toughest experiences. I'm not going to pinpoint on one, but the entire experience of sitting across someone and conveying this news or this message to the person that there is no further role or no further road in this particular organization for that individual, and in many times that individual would have been hired by you, right?
Yeah,
To me, that's by far the toughest in my profession at least.
it's very tough, Saurabh.
Yeah,
So, people say that firing is so easy, or
yeah.
maybe we can call it restructuring, but it's so
Yeah,
tough.
I don't use the word firing simply because there's too much of
Yeah,
negativity involved there. Because and I use restructuring because most of the time, or many times, that entire exercise of letting someone go, the person is absolutely at no fault, right? It's the I mean we are in extraordinary times since last 12 13 months now, right? And a lot of organizations have gone through some painful restructuring exercises,
yeah,
but more than the organization, the individuals who have gone through that exercise for no fault of theirs, right? This pandemic has led to that situation, and that makes it even more difficult, right? Because you're having a conversation wherein for no particular reason or no particular fault of that individual, right? You're going to be conveying to the individual that that's the end of the road for him or her. That's not easy. That's not easy. When there is a reason, it becomes that much more easy. I mean, I've had exit conversations wherein there was a violation of code of conduct and so on and so forth, or performance for that matter. Uh, I'm not saying that those conversations are easy, but compared to a restructuring exercise, comparatively easy because there is a reason based on which you're having those calculations, right?
So sort of if we actually talk about the performance related, thing that actually happens. So is the decision taken beforehand or the decision is taken after you have a talk with that particular person?
You're talking about performance-related exits.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, okay. So it's an ongoing thing, Rishi, right? So performance management as a concept, to me, I mean, we kind of abused that word so much that it is right now in many places associated with only giving ratings and what happens after that
yeah,
rating, increments and bonuses and so on and so forth. And if you really look at your performance review or performance management system only from that micro lens, you're missing the point, right? So to me, performance management system has to start with first figuring out what is it that you need to achieve. How, so whether now you call it goals or objective doesn't matter, but having a very clear understanding as an organization, as a team, as a manager, and therefore as a team member about what is it that we're chasing, what is that goal post. That is really the starting point. And unless you do that point well, everything else falls apart in performance management system, right? So once you define your goal post, then you figure out, okay, how are we going to reach to those goals and objectives? What are the different steps we're going to take? What are the different resources we're going to have? What are the frequency at which we will keep checking in whether we are moving in the right direction at the right pace or not, right? Now, whether you call it as reviews or whatever may be the case. And then you finally look at the outcome, right? That have you reached that goal? Have you reached that goal post or not? Right? And then if you have, then there's a certain action or a reward which comes in. If you haven't, then there's a certain feedback or a repercussion which comes in. Now, so it's a continuum, right? And therefore, to answer your question, right, you really are asking me that what happens in the end. To
yeah,
me, it's a continuum that if you have had unless you have had a very structured discussion and conversation around that, what is it that we're going to achieve, or what is it that we're looking to achieve, how we're going to achieve it, how frequently we're going to continuously keep evaluating whether we are on the right track or not, and then eventually we will evaluate whether we have reached that goalpost and how far away are we from that goalpost, and then link to that other rewards or repercussions, right? So that's really how you go into it. Now, therefore, when you're going into a discussion, and I'm talking about now the end discussion, which is like the end of the performance cycle discussion, you already ideally should have the data points, right, in terms of what is it that we were trying to achieve, how much have we achieved it, what went right, what went wrong, and then basis that you go into a conversation, right? So that's really how it happens. You don't go into a conversation thinking that you'll figure it out with the individual. I don't think that's the right way to approach it.
And sort of, one thing that, that I've seen in, the small experience that I had, till now, is that, a leader makes a hell lot of a difference, right? A leader can actually help a person who was not performing well to become the top performer. And, a leader can do anything. And this is what I've seen, like, in some of the past companies, like initially 1 or 2 months, I was struggling, but then just because of good mentorship, good guidance, I went on to become one of the topmost performers. What are
Yeah.
your views on that? Performance of a particular person, a lot of interrelated factors are there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt about the fact that having the right mentor, and again, you can use whatever nomenclature you want to use, whether it's a mentor or a coach or a guide, but someone who has seen that journey or who has been on that journey on which you have just started off is very important, right? Because then that person can actually look at you, zoom out and look at you and guide you or mentor you, coach you as you go about that journey, right? So there's no doubt about that. And that's the role of a leader, honestly. But having said that, I also fundamentally believe that ultimately it's your journey, right? So no two journeys are same. So the person, even if your mentor or coach has gone down the same career trajectory which you are aspiring to go through, the challenges which he or she would have faced, the way he or she would have coped with those, will or might be completely different than yours, right? So he or she can definitely play the role of guiding you, helping you understand, or making you realize that what could be the possible challenges, roadblocks, how do you navigate, and things like that. But ultimately, you have to walk that path, right? Ultimately, once you have chosen a career for yourself, you have to go through that career trajectory and path of yours, right? So you need to be very clear in your mind, and it's an evolutionary process. I mean, today, if you were to ask me that, am I very clear that okay, how do I navigate my own career trajectory next 10 years? Answer is no, right? I mean, I don't know everything, right? But you discover as you go through the journey. But I think it is important for you as an individual to know. I'm going to go back to that point that once you've chosen a career path for yourself, what are the end goals? What are the milestones you want to achieve, right? And we're not talking about 20 years down the line. What is it that you want to achieve next 6 months? What is it that you want to achieve next 12 months, 18, 24, and like that, And then once you figure that thing in your mind or head that, okay, these are the goal posts which I want to achieve, right? Whether it is, if I talk about an HR profession, I want to get trained in or have an exposure on recruitment as a function. I want to have exposure on training as a function. Now, those could be some of the goalposts. Once you have those goalposts, then you ask yourself that, how do I get that, right? How do I get there, right? So in terms of picking up the right roles, going and speaking to your manager that, hey, can I pick up recruitment? Just as an example. Could be one example. But the point I'm trying to make is that as an individual, unless you're answering this question for yourself, that what is it that you want to do in your journey? What is it that you want to achieve in your journeys? No mentor, no coach can help you there.
That's true, sort of. Like, we have to find out our own goalpost first of all, and then only, we can find out some
No,
person who
absolutely.
can help us. Right?
Oh yeah, then you'll find. I mean, see, once you know where you want to reach, you also will know that who could be the mentor for you. What are the kind of people you need to reach out to seek advice? You can't do it unless you know what is it that you're trying to achieve, where is it that you're trying to go, what is the path you should be taking. You have no idea otherwise, right?
Now, like, the next one is again related to human resources. Is that what trends will shape human resource departments over the coming 5 to 10 years?
So, I think would be a cliche for me to say that definitely technology. right? And we're already seeing that. But disruption in the profession of human resources because of technology is going to be the thing which we all have to be prepared for. Now, human resources, some of the most obvious things is, and we are already seeing that use of, for example, artificial intelligence, machine language, and things like that in the space of recruitment itself, right? So, in terms of helping recruiters and helping organizations filter through the right candidates and so on and so forth, creating a algorithm which allows them to filter through thousands of applicants and give to them the most relevant candidates whom they should be interviewing. We are seeing that. Another place which I believe could be very disruptive is how do you go about skill building in your teams, right? And skill building which is relevant, not just relevant for the roles which they're doing, but the next one or two roles which they ideally should be doing as they go through their career trajectory, right? And therefore, figuring out ways and means of putting those skill building mechanisms together through technology is another thing which I believe could disrupt. A third, I think, again, we've already seen organizations venture into it, but use of bots, etc., to take up a lot of the
Yeah.
transactional
Yes.
part of HR work, the thing which I started off with. I think it's a matter of time we're going to see that happening.
Now, we have got one or two, very good companies doing that. One of them is Lina AI,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
chatbots wala thing.
Correct.
Uh, you know, Sorry to advertise that company over here, but then just had to take one example. So now the
Sure.
next question is sort of for an employee, what do you think is more important, learning agility versus someone who has got all the skills with him?
Definitely learning agility. I don't think the concept of an individual having all the skills exist. It just doesn't exist, right?
Yeah.
Simply because the world is changing so fast that even if you have majority of the skills required to do your job today, right? Very soon, many of those will become redundant, or very soon newer skill set would come in, or newer discovery inventions would come into your profession. Therefore, you'll have to reinvent yourself, right? So I don't think there exists a concept which according to which you find an individual who knows everything about the job or the role. It just doesn't exist, and therefore to me, learning agility is very important because that tells me that how adaptable the individual would be with the changing world, with the changing environment, right? And therefore, that is the person I'm going to punt on because that person would be ready as the proactively will make himself or herself ready for the changes, upcoming changes.
Yeah. And sort of how do you measure learning agility? Uh,
How
Maybe
do I
some.
measure learning? Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, I think, see, a lot of it comes from experience, right? A lot of it comes from experience in terms of, and I'm talking about, or I'm assuming you're asking me that how do I figure out a person has learning
Yeah.
agility in an interview, right? I don't know that individual. See, the way I would go about it is by asking individuals about their life experiences and how they kind of overcame or prepared themselves for those challenges as they came about, right? And that then going deeper into that would tell me that whether the person was just being reactive to the situation or proactively figured out ways to tackle in a number of challenges or which we all go through in our lives at different point of time. So to me, that's really the way I go about figuring out whether the person is adaptable and has the learning agility to cope up with all the changes which are going to come through in his or her career.
Uh, Now the next one is, who is your mentor in the field of human resources?
So you want me to name the person?
That's your wish, like up to you.
Okay, okay. So okay, if I have to pick one person, it would be this person whom I've worked with for close to, in fact, more than a decade now. And initially, I interacted with her while working with Bero, and we were looking for some executive coach for our leadership team. And that's how I came across this organization. The organization is called Triple M Training Solutions. It's founded by a lady by the name Pramila Matthew. And she's a very senior person, extremely experienced coach, executive coach, has worked with some of the best names in the industry. And eventually, as I said, my initial relationship with her was that of a partner. She was in the coach for our leadership team. But even over a period of time, the relationship which we have built is that for anything, any advice, any inputs which I need as I move through my own career, she's almost my go-to person in that sense.
Right. And so, any other person whom you like to take the name of, except her?
Uh, On and off, yes. I mean, I've been blessed with some really amazing managers I've worked with, including my present manager, Rupa Kudra, and all of them have been great mentors, right? So whether it's Rupa here at Omidyar Network, or Kunar at Snapdeal, or Vale at Vero, one of my first managers at Aditya Birla Group was Rajesh Srivastav. He was a great mentor too. He taught me the various things which a good HR professional should know. And my very first manager immediately after campus, lady by the name Padmini Mishra, whom I worked with at my retail Aditya Birla retail stream. So these 4 or 5 individuals who coincidentally happened to be my managers as well at different point of time, I would definitely call them out as my mentors. And as I said, I've been really blessed to have had managers whom I could have looked up to as mentors as well.
Yeah. Now, for all those guys, who are just going to enter into, MBA and are going to pursue their career in HR, would like to know from you, what human resource subjects interested you the most, while your time at XLRI?
So by far the subject which interested me the most was compensation and benefits, right? And I have been more than decent with numbers and mathematics through my early childhood days and schooling days. And so I think given that, I think compensation was something which just came naturally in terms of an interest area. Other than that, the subject because of which I actually ended up doing masters in human resources was training. My first job as a software coder for some part of that, my job in that particular organization, which can be, I was training on a certain software application, and that was the first time I had trained anyone, right, as a trainer, and that just opened up my eyes in terms of one, how much I enjoyed doing that, and second, therefore, thinking about that, okay, what would it take for me to take that up as a profession, and therefore when I looked at rather looked at training as a profession, I realized that okay, maybe HR is the thing which I need to do. So yeah, training and compensation and benefits, I would say by far. When I was in Accelerate, when I was studying. Now, if you ask me, I would say org structuring, org design, culture, some of the subject areas which I really enjoy doing. I still like compensation benefits, but yeah, that's how it would be.
And that's so important for the new startups which are coming up, like org structure and uh, creating processes for them specifically.
No doubt about it. Absolutely. So I did I lose? Okay, yeah. So I firmly believe that in a startup ecosystem,
Yeah.
how you think about structuring your organization, designing your organization goes a long way in terms of how well you go about achieving your business objective, right? And it actually boils down to a very fundamental thing. How strong a building is completely dependent on how strong the foundation is, right? How well a software code will work is hugely dependent on how well you have put that flow chart or put the design of the code in, right? So same logic applies on organization building as well. If you don't get your structure right, if you don't get your design right, it's almost next to impossible to build a strong organization.
Absolutely. Now, your views on managing failures, because your life must be filled with ups and downs. So so how do you manage failures in your life?
I don't want to sound like I'm preaching, but given with whatever I have experienced in my own career of 16, 17 years and my short life of 41 odd years, I fundamentally believe that two, three things. One, failures are bound to happen. I don't think there exists a human being who's not failed at something, right? So that's number one. So not being scared of failure is very important, right? I'm not saying that you go into something and with thinking that, oh, you're going to fail. No, that's a wrong attitude. But not thinking about failure when you're into something, when you're trying to do something, when you're trying to achieve something is important, because success or failure, as you rightly said at some point in time during this conversation, there's a lot of factors which are involved in whether you're finally going to succeed or not, right? And many times those factors are outside your control, right? But what is in your control is having the ability to put in your best effort to succeed, right?
Yes.
And doing that is important, right? So that's number one. Number two, I would say what failure has done to me personally, and I've seen that around with a lot of other individuals as well. I think the amount of learning which you get when you fail is far higher than when you succeed on something. That's my personal view, right? And therefore, failure has a very important role to play in your evolution as an individual, as a professional, right? So your ability to see failure in that light, right? That, hey, this is an opportunity for me to learn and become better at whatever I do next. The moment you start doing that, you are on a curve, or you are on a cycle where you're bettering yourself with every single step which you take, right? So, like for example, when I was teaching my kid, my daughter Meher, how to cycle about a year back, right? She was just about 3.5 years old at that point in time. Naturally, there were times when she would fall off, right? She'll fall down, or the cycle will fall down, right? It would have been very easy as a father for me to say, hey, you know what, leave it. Seeing your kid fall down, you leave it. We'll try it some other time. But I think it was even more important for me to make her understand that why did she fall? What was the mistake she did? So that when she tries it again, she ensures she's not making that mistake. And that's what we did. And I mean, I take a lot of pride in the fact that she learned cycling in exactly 12 days. So I think it's important for you for any individual to understand that failure has a big part to play in in your evolution as an individual. That's very important. I firmly believe in that.
That's right. It's so important,
And
right?
and, and then when you do that, actually, sorry, I obviously did not answer your question completely, but when you do that, right, then you automatically know how to cope up with the failures. You're actually not coping up failure. You're actually embracing a failures as an opportunity to learn and become a better individual.
That's such a great line that you have put, actually, Saurabh. Embracing failures, to take it as an opportunity to become a better individual next time.
Yeah.
Uh, Now, the next question is, you will find a number of people, switching their work domains, like, somebody in marketing getting into operations getting into finance. Sometimes, I've seen people, from marketing getting into HR as well. So how do you see that? First is the domain change that people do over their career, and the second is the job hopping. Maybe you will find a number of people changing jobs after 1 year, 1 year, 1.5 years, something like that. How do you see that? Like,
So as far as domain changing is concerned, Rishi, I fundamentally believe that it's an individual's call, right? As I was saying a little while earlier, that figuring out what is that goalpost you want to chase, it's your call. It's my life, it's your profession, it's your career. If you want to do, as an example, marketing, being an HR professional, yeah, I mean nobody's going to stop you. But once you figure that out, that okay, this is what I want to do. This is what I mean. Say marketing. Then automatically you need to then start thinking about that. How will you go about making that transition? How are you going to go about making that shift? There will be compromises which you'll have to take. There might be pay cuts which you might have to take because your experience may not be relevant for the kind of roles which you're going to be seeking in a completely different domain. But all of those are individual or personal calls, right? So whether it is right or wrong, I think it's a completely individual call, and I don't think it's fair on my part or anybody else's part to call it right or wrong, right? So if somebody wants to make a shift, and why just domains, right? Shift anywhere for that matter, right? I think that's his or her personal call, right? And if that person is willing to take the risk, willing to put in the effort, willing to make the compromises or the compromises which may come along the way, that's
yeah,
perfectly fine. That's absolutely fine. Now, coming to the second point, right? Really, which is around job hopping and people switching in jobs. See, I'll tell you, I have two ways to look at it. One, which is very fundamental. You need to be clear about the reason and the rationale for because of which you're moving jobs, right? And if the reason and the rationale convinces you, by all fair means, you should do it, right? And I'll tell you why I'm saying this, right? Because see, I fundamentally believe that any game which you play or any role which you did, right? I mean, I'm going to use sports as an example here, right? So you have a choice to play a particular game. Once you say, okay, I'm going to play hockey, right? So once you start playing hockey, you have to play hockey by the rules of hockey. You can't play hockey by using the rules of cricket, right? Now, as you start playing hockey, it is possible that you may not like those rules or you may not like that game at all. It is possible. We are all human, right? In that sense. So when you are in a game in which whose rules you don't like, or when you are playing a game which you're not liking, right, or which you're not able to cope up with, for that matter, right? So hockey is fairly, intensive game in that sense. And suppose you're not able to cope up. Now, whatever may be the reasons, one or more of these reasons, it's better for you to change the game rather than continuing to, figuring out that okay, how do I cope up with it, right? Now, at what point you change that game, that is your call, right? To understand whether you have put in all the effort required to ace this game or not, that's your call. Nobody else can tell you that, right? But if you're convinced in your mind that you have tried all that you could, you don't like the game, you don't like the pace at which it is played, you don't like the rules with which it is played, then you please change the game, right? Because other 10 players or 21 players who are playing that game, they're playing because they're liking it, right? Yeah. So you don't like it, you're not able to cope up, go play something else. Same logic applies in an organization context, right? You have decided to work with an organization. Now, organization has a certain way of working. It has a certain goals or objective which it is trying to chase. It has a certain style in which it works. It has certain resources which it will provide to people to work on it. That's what I call the rules of the game, right? That's with the rules of that particular organization. Now, you try your best to take all of this together and then contribute your bit, right? And succeed in it. If it doesn't happen, and if you're convinced that you've tried all your bit, then it's time for you to change that game. It's time for you to change the organization, right? So that's how I look at it. So I can't tell you at what frequency you should be doing that. I also can't tell you that what exactly should be the reason, because different people have different reasons and rationale. Yeah. Do I think it's wrong? I don't think it's wrong. I mean, I have switched jobs as well. I mean, let me put it that way, right? So I can't say it's wrong, but the reason has to be right. That's very important. The reason because of which you're quitting a game and going and picking up a new game, or quitting an organization and going to work with a different organization, that has to be very crystal clear in your mind, and that has to be a strong enough reason and rationale for you to do it.
Yeah. So as Saurabh told, but you have to be convinced about the reason. If you are convinced, take a call. And
absolutely.
And he mentioned in the beginning of it, like you've got that constant number of breaths with you, so use your time properly.
Oh, absolutely.
Now the next thing is that there's a lot of stuff which is being talked about, the work-life balance thing, Saurabh. So how do you define work-life balance?
Difficult for me to say, right? I mean, different people, depending on different stage of their personal and professional life, will have different meaning to work-life balance. Honestly, if you would have asked me this question, say 4 years back or little over 4 years back, when Meher or my daughter wasn't there, my definition of work-life balance was very different, and now it's extremely different. So the way I look at work-life balance is that as long as you are able to spend time and do justice to everything which you are looking to do in your personal and professional life at any given point of time, that's work-life balance. Now, it is possible that, like, for example, that's the example I was trying to give you, like 4.5, 5 years back, to me, work was possibly taking up 60-70% of my bandwidth, right? And only 20-30% of my bandwidth or my mind space was going to my personal life. I was happy doing that because that's exactly what I was focusing on. I was learning, I was in a new industry, I was working with Snapdeal, e-commerce was extremely nascent at that point. I'm talking about 2014, 2015, right? And I wanted to make the most of it. So it was very clear in my mind in terms of what my priorities are, and therefore accordingly I was putting in that much amount of time and bandwidth into making that happen. And I was pretty happy with that. Right? Flip it now, right? And if you really ask me, I put a lot of emphasis and a lot of thought around how much time I get to spend with my family, and when I say family, specifically my daughter, because these are her formative years, and I believe that spending time with her at this point of time is important, right? And therefore, if I'm able to spend that much of time, which I have thought about in my mind with my kid, with my family, while working on my professional as well. So that's work-life balance for me, right? So it changes, it evolves, and it's in your mind to figure out that based on the priorities which you have set out for yourself in your professional personal life, are you able to do justice to those priorities or not? If you're able to, right, then I think your work-life there is work-life balance. I don't think it's a factor of hey, I'm spending 10 hours in office and only 6 hours at home. That's not work-life balance. I don't think that definition holds true, actually, if you really ask me.
So that depends on person to person, like what is
Person
his,
to person, it depends on your life stage, it depends on your priorities as well.
yeah.
That's where it is. So if my priority, and let me continue giving this example, if my priority right now, for example, is in a personal life is to have the ability to spend, say, 50% of my time with my daughter, right? And if my work doesn't allow me to do that, right, then then I don't have work-life balance. It's as simple as that, right? Similarly, if I rewind back, say 6-7 years back, when I wanted to make sure that I'm investing my time into my career, into the job and the role which I was doing at in the organization I was with, right? And for whatever reason, my personal life did not allow me to invest that much of time. Then again, I don't have a work-life balance,
Yeah.
right? So you need to one needs to understand that really work-life balance emanates from the fact that if you're not able to devote the time which you want to on your priorities, there'll be frustration, right? So
Yes.
that's where work-life balance comes in.
Got it. This clarified a number of things. And now, Saurabh, another question is that a number of people do ask it, like will you prefer a pay cut if you're getting a role which is more suitable for your profile and for your career growth?
So I can give you a theoretical answer. I've not done it myself ever. Theoretically, yes. Okay, but I haven't done it till now. Thankfully, I've not been required to do it till now, because but but yeah, if there is an opportunity which I really want to do, and if I'm required to take a certain amount of pay cut, I may be okay. I mean, I can't give you an answer with surety because I've not been confronted with that situation. But theoretically, I don't see there's anything wrong in it, provided your financial what should I say, financial is taken care of, right? So that's really how I would put it.
Got it. And now, one of the last questions is that your advice to the job seekers uh, who are like, trying to get jobs. Many of them are on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Two aspects I would say, Rishi. I fund three rather, I would say. One, goes back to the point which I made, which is that we have finite breath, right? Make the most of it. Which basically means that irrespective of the profession which you choose or the career which you've chosen, make sure that you're striving to be the best in it. And the operative word here is striving, right? Because it is obviously impossible for everybody to be the best or number one in, right? But when you strive to be the best, you will make meaningful or you will create meaningful outcomes for yourself in your career, in your job, right? You would have made sure that you're utilizing the breadth which you're devoting to your career, to your job, to your to your role meaningfully. So I think the first one I would say is that make sure what does it take to be the best in your profession, right? And have that endeavor that I want to be the best in my profession, and then basis that, put in the effort. That's number one to me, right? Second, I would say no job, no role at any given point of time in your career, not just when you're starting off, right? Will have elements which I think we spoke about this a little while earlier, will have all the elements which you would love to do. There will always be certain aspects in a job, in a role, which you may not enjoy totally. Which is the fact of the matter. I mean, the point I'm trying to make here is that take the job or the role as a whole, right? The good things and the not so good things, right? And loop it back to point number one, which is when you're doing the job, whatever aspects of that job you're going to be doing, put in your 150% into it. Sometimes you may not like that part of your job, but you still have to put in your 150%. That's how you evolve as a professional in your career, in your role. And third, I would say, which is a very, very cliche thing, right? Which is, do not be afraid of putting in the hard work. Hard work, perseverance, there is no shortcut, there is no substitute for that. I firmly believe that most of us are going to work for 2 to 3 decades, right? 20, 30 years. So building a career, building a successful career is a long haul. It's like a marathon, right? So overnight success or a 100-meter sprint is not the way, or is not the thought process based on which you build a career. You build a career brick by brick, chipping away, right? I firmly believe in the concept of chipping away, right? I mean, every little thing you do, every little role you do, every little task you do, how you approach it, how you do it, what value you create out of it, everything adds up. You may not realize it at that point of time when you're doing it, right?
Yeah.
But when you look back, like even for me, if I were to look back at some of the biggest learnings have come to me from a lot of operational pieces which I've done in the past. Which when I was doing at that point, like for example, I've done a lot of these payroll migrations early on in my career, right? So in organizations, payroll used to be done in-house. The organization would become large enough, then you would go and outsource it, right? And this entire practice of outsourcing an in-house payroll to an outsourced partner, it's a fairly operational intensive, labor intensive work. A lot of night outs and so on and so forth. You don't really enjoy it, at least at that point. At least I did not truly enjoy it at that point of time. But when I look back upon those experiences of payroll migrations, right, I learned a lot. What did I learn? I learned operational rigor. I learned attention to detail. I learned how to value times and timelines, right? Because when you're migrating a payroll, you only have a 1 month, right? Because if this month's payroll you did in-house and the next month's payroll you want to do outsource, you just have 1 month's time when you have to do it. So all those aspects you learned when you were doing it, right? And if one had not done that with super enthusiasm, with wholeheartedness, those learnings would not have come through. So the third point which I'm trying to make here is that whatever you're doing, put in your whole soul into it. There is no substitute for hard work. Let's be very clear about it, because we're talking about a 20, 30-year period, right? And you need to be at it. You need to slog. Let me put it this way, right? I mean, there is no other way to succeed. I don't think, at least I'm not aware of any other mantra for success, actually.
Yeah. So guys, you work hard for 20 years and then you become an overnight success. So there's no substitute to hard work at all.
No, there is none. And not just in your career, right? I mean, it holds true for anything, right? So whether it is your fitness, whether it is your skills in a particular sports, whether it is being a good dad, in my case, it all comes over a period of time, and you have to put in that effort. It doesn't come on its own.
And now, Saurabh, my last question, I will take you back to your college days, in XLRI, and I will ask you, one mischievous thing which you are really proud of, which you did during your college days.
Oh my God. I was a very serious student, right? So difficult to pinpoint. What would I have done? School might be the right place to go back to if you have to talk about mischievous stuff. I think college and both graduation and post-graduation, I don't think I had too many mischievous things to do. But school, yes. School, I mean, I remember in my plus 2, 11th and 12th, I had a very unique combination of subjects, right? So I was a science student. I had the typical physics, chemistry, maths, and English as the language. And my fifth subject was geography. Right. And the reason I took geography was, and the reason why some of us, 10, 15 of us took geography was that, the other two options for fifth subject were biology and Hindi. Right. And I was really poor at both of those. Right. So that's why we ended up taking geography, because it was like the unknown commodity. Right. And but being science students, you had to go to the arts section to attend geography classes. Right. And people who've been in a school where both science and art section exists, you would know that there's always a tiff between the science section and the art section, right? So we wouldn't enjoy going to an art section to their class because they were obviously more in number in terms of geography students from the art section, right? And we were only a handful, just 10 of us, right? So we would get bullied, we would get ragged, so to say. So invariably we would find out excuses to miss the class, and excuses could range from as simple as not feeling well to mom not feeling well to having to buy something very important from the thing, or in some cases principal ma'am has given some important task when even principal ma'am would not know about it. So yeah, I mean I think there will be like only a handful of classes we would have attended in the subject of geography during that 1 year of 12th standard. Yeah, to me that was the most mischievous thing. And when my mom came to the school for her parent teachers meet, yeah, they used to do parent teacher meet even for 12th standard students. The only complaint she heard about me was this: that this guy is not seen in the class at all for geography classes.
So you felt bad or you felt great about it?
Okay, the way to look at it is that will I advise this to my daughter? The answer is no, right? And I'll tell you, I actually learned it myself as well. I firmly believe that marks is not always a indication of how well you know that subject. I got more than decent marks in that subject, but I knew nothing about that subject, to be honest with you, right? And that's when I realized that the same concept. And see that when you're 17, 18, that realization doesn't come. But by the time I hit 25, 26, and I went to do my MBA, I said, yeah, you know what? You are investing so much of resources into this subject, into this curriculum. And when I say resources, not just the fees which you are paying, your time as well, right?
Yeah.
So when you're investing time and effort and resources and your hard-earned money or your dad's hard-earned money into it, you might as well make the most out of it, right? And one aspect of making the most out of it is please attend the classes, right? Because obviously the professor knows more than you. And just like, as I said, no profession will have everything which you will like. No curriculum will have all the subjects which you like. You'll love some subject, you may not love some subject, but you have decided to. I mean, Accelerate did not come calling, ask me to join them, right? I took a call to you. Once you've taken a call and you're putting in so much resources into it, I fundamentally believe that I needed to make the most out of it, and therefore I don't think I missed classes. I mean, yeah, when I was not genuinely not keeping well, that's a different matter. So yeah, I did learn from that piece, right? So there was this subject geography. I had that subject for 2 years. I hardly knew anything about it. I got decent marks. That's a different matter. But what's the point of investing into something when you're not going to make the most out of it? So that's really how I would put it. So yeah. So to answer your question, I don't think I would like to repeat it. I'd never repeated something like that again. Let's put it that way.
This is the best thing now. Like, we can all do mistakes, but we should not repeat that again and again.
Yeah, learn from it. That's what. Just like you go, embrace failures, embrace mistakes as well, right? And learn from them.
Right. So Saurabh, like, I've already taken 47 minutes of yours, and I know you have got other commitments as well. But thank you for this enlightening session. A lot of questions that I actually asked you were from the interview questions as well. Which are usually being asked to the people who are appearing for HR interviews. So it may be helpful for them as well. Plus all the insightful things. Embracing failures. Learning from your mistakes. About the changes of domains, about changing your job profiles, and then the limited number of breaths that you have, right? If we keep that on the back of our mind, we will take a lot of decisions more logically, and in our more like in all of our senses. Thank you, sir, and we'll be in touch, and take care of
Sure.
yourself.
Thank you, Rishi. Thanks a lot for inviting me over. I truly enjoyed my conversation with you. And just one last thing, you mentioned interview and interview questions. Unsolicited advice here would be, approach interviews as conversations, job interviews, right? So, which also mean that, be very honest and true in your responses. Don't try to give responses which you believe the interviewer wants to hear from you. No. Obviously, when it is a skill-based question, if the interviewer is asking you 2+2, you have to answer 4. That's a given. But when the interviewer is, especially in HR interviews, when the interviewer is trying to understand your background, your life experiences, and so on and so forth, be absolutely truthful. To me, that's the mantra of cracking or doing well in interviews. When you approach them with full transparency and honesty as a conversation, invariably you'll do well in those conversations, stroke interviews.
Absolutely, sort of so true. Even I have seen that, being truthful is, far better than, lying about something,
Oh
which
yeah,
we are actually.
absolutely. Okay,
Thanks a lot,
lovely.
Saurabh. Yeah.
Thank you, Rishi. Nice
Take
talking to
care.
you. Bye. Bye.